So, a very warm welcome to everybody who has joined us today. It's a pleasant surprise for us to see so many of you on a Saturday morning. Welcome to today's workshop. And I'm very excited to see all of you and very excited to have the team of KUAS also, Kyoto University of Advanced Sciences with us. Today's workshop, before we move ahead, I would like to briefly introduce myself. I will be your host today. I'm Deepti Singh. I'm a principal counselor for Japanese universities. And apart from counseling students to study in Japan, I'm also a visiting faculty with Amity University and Mosai Language School. I have pursued my education in Ritsumeikan Asia Pacific University. It's a Japanese university. And post that, I pursued my master's in Japanese language and cultural studies from JNU Delhi. This is my passion. I want to bring this wonderful opportunity of studying in Japan to as many students as possible in India. And for the same, I also run a YouTube channel. It is called Education Japan. We have about 10K subscribers already. And if you are also as much passionate about Japan, and if you like workshops like these, I encourage you to please join our community. It's a small community of students who have appreciation for Japan and its cultural values. So the channel's name is Education Japan. All right, so that's briefly about me. Now, let me tell you a little bit about the agenda today. So the agenda today will, obviously, we will start with the AI workshop by Dr. Liang. After conducting the workshop, we will have some time for Q&A session. All the students who have their queries from Dr. Liang, you will be given 10 minutes time to have those sorted. We will break for 5 minutes. And then after the break, we will have a session on study in Japan. Basically, all of you who are contemplating whether you should study in India, you should go abroad to study, what kind of destination is Japan to study in, all these queries you can expect to be sorted during this 1 hour. And we will specifically have team of Kyoto University Advanced Sciences to tell you more about the university and the admissions process there. Uh, and that's about it. Just a couple of things which are important to note. There is a participation certificate for everybody, but it is only for students who stay through the session till the end of the session. So you will be awarded a certificate of participation if only you stay through the entire session. And please keep yourself on mute. If you have any questions, there will be Q&A time during the sessions, and you will be given a chance to speak to the professor directly. All right. So with that, I want to start today's session. And I extend a very warm welcome to Professor Liang. Just before we start, I want to introduce Dr. Liang to you. Dr. Liang, she holds a PhD degree in electrical engineering and information systems from the University of Tokyo. It is the most prestigious university in Japan. And during her studies, she participated in exchange programs at the University of Oxford and Imperial College London. She was also awarded Australian Government Endeavour Research Fellowship, and she worked as a postdoctoral researcher at the University of Melbourne. Following this, she became assistant professor at the University of Tokyo, and she currently serves as a junior associate professor in Kyoto University of Advanced Sciences. I welcome you, Dr. Liang, for today's session. It's a pleasure to have you here today.
Hello, everyone. Good morning.
Professor,
Just give me one.
no. Yes, please.
Good morning, ma'am.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, it's
Okay,
visible.
great. Are we going to wait a little bit more for more participants to join, or shall we get started? All right, so I guess we can get started. If we have more people joining us along the way, they can simply hop in using the game pin. Okay, so good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us on a Saturday morning. So it's really great to see so many participants here, and I'm Professor Liang from KUAS, Kyoto University of Advanced Science in Kyoto, Japan. I suppose you guys join us today because you're curious about pursuing an education in Japan, and you are curious probably about AI or ChatGPT. So, and I also assume today probably it's the first time for most of you to make an application, right? But don't worry, even if you don't have any programming experience, just relax, because today we're going to use something very, very special. It's called MIT App Inventor. It doesn't require any coding. So we're going to it's kind of like playing puzzle games, drag and drop and assemble some blocks to create a very nice chat GPT based AI app. So let's get started. This is the app that we're going to make today. So it's going to be an image generator app. So basically, the app will allow user to input some description, which we call a prompt describing the kind of image that the user wants ChatGPT to generate. And once the user hit draw for me, the button here, then the app will communicate with ChatGPT and wait for the response from ChatGPT. And once ChatGPT returns a response or the requested image, then the app will demonstrate or display the image on the user interface. So it's a very, very simple and sleek app. But we can learn a lot of things through building this application today. So nowadays we use smartphone applications every day, right? Including high school or middle school students like you. And these apps were built using programming languages, of course. So now I have a quiz for you guys. Which of the following programming languages is not for making Android apps? We know there are Android apps and iOS apps, right? Or even Windows apps. And different kind of operating systems use different programming languages. So can you have a guess which of the following programming languages is not for making Android apps? Oh, so most of you think it should be XML. The correct answer is Python. So Python is not a programming language for making Android apps. Using Python, you can make web apps, but not Android apps. So traditionally, we use Java or XML for making Android apps. But in recent years, Google invented another language called Kotlin. So this Kotlin is right now the standard language that we use to make Android apps. And this language is supposed to be more, beginner friendly. Congratulations, okay. Right now you are the number one on the scoreboard. Okay, now as I mentioned, I have more quizzes coming up later, so be patient and be careful. Listen to me carefully. MIT's App Inventor is a visual programming tool, so it's like playing puzzle games, and there's no need to write any code. And we can make Android apps really fast using MIT App Inventor. Well, if you have experience with another environment called Scratch, you might find App Inventor very, very familiar. And so every application, whether it's mobile app or web app, has two essential parts, the front end and the back end. So this is a basic knowledge about app development. Usually when we say like app development, that consists of the development of both the front end and the back end. And on the left side, we have the front end, right? So front end is basically everything that users can see on the screen. So it could be the layout, the animations, the text, pictures, graphics on the user interface. And in order to make a front end, the user interface, we normally use programming languages such as JavaScript, HTML, or CSS. And nowadays, you also have like Flutter or graphic-based interface that you don't really need to code. You just drag and drop some blocks and combine them to create your user interface. On the other hand, we also have back end. So no app can function without a back end. Well, even if you have a very, very beautiful user interface or the front end, without the back end, an app cannot behave or function well. So the back end configures the behavior of an application. And the back end, of course, is the base code. So we have a lot of programming code files, and we also need to debug the back end. And there's also like database management, data management, resource management, API. So back end normally takes 80% of the development time, but back end is invisible to the end users. You don't see the back end. The only thing you see as a user is the front end. For back end, we normally use programming languages such as Node.js or Python. Python is for web app, or Java, Java for Android app, or Kotlin. For iOS apps, we use Swift. So remember, an app has two parts, front end and back end. Now, so today we're going to make our ChatGPT app, right? And of course, we need to build our front end and back end. So now let's get started with making the front end interface of our ChatGPT app. So right now I'm going to switch to the MIT App Inventor. There's gonna be a lot of back and forth switch because we're using, different platforms. Right now, you guys see it, App Inventor, MIT App Inventor here. So in order to make new application, I'm going to click on the project and start a new project. I'm gonna name it as ChatGPT image generator. And just hit OK. If you have a Gmail account, you can try it out by yourself. Otherwise, it's perfectly fine just to enjoy my instruction as a cooking show. Okay, now I have a new project. And right now you can see there is a virtual interface looking like a smartphone, right? This is where we're going to build our user interface, or the front end. And if you are curious where's the back end, click this blocks button here, then you are switching to the working space to build the back end. But right now we're just going to build our user interface. So the user interface today is very simple. If you remember, where's the other screen? There we go. The user interface today is very, very simple, right? We have a title of the app, and then a text box that allows user to describe the kind of image they want the app to generate for them. And then we need a button and then a space to show the image generated by ChatGPT. So very, very simple UI. We have a lot of UI components on the left side. So first we need a label component and just drag it here. And then a text box here. And then we need a button. Yes. And then an image to show the image generated by ChatGPT. And we also need a web component so that the app can communicate with ChatGPT servers. So web component should be somewhere. You don't really need to memorize where the components are or what components we have. You just need to, check. And I suppose web component here. All right, now we have all the components we need. But in order to make the layout more beautiful, I'm going to add a vertical scroll arrangement. So this will allow us to scroll the screen up and down. Okay, now we have all the components needed for building the UI. And right now it looks very primitive, right? And not very visually appealing. So I'm going to do a little bit of formatting. Normally we will want the arrangement to feel pairing, expand throughout the whole screen. Okay, and then we can align all the child components in the middle. For this purpose, I'm going to center. Okay, so our child components are centered very well. And then this is supposed to be the title of the app, right? So I'm going to change the text. Let's say we call it ChatGPT image generator. There we go. But the title looks tiny, so I'm going to enlarge the font, set it to 24. As I said, you don't need to memorize anything, just, you can try different options and see how it works. And I'm gonna make it bold and change the color, probably change it to blue. There we go. And for the button, I'm going to make it blue and then change the font color to white. There's no text here. And change the text on the button to draw for me. Okay, and for the image, I'm going to scale it. Scale parent. Okay, I think the UI looks pretty good. Exactly what we want. That's it. We've finished building our user interface, the front end. It's very easy, isn't it? Now I'm going to switch back to Kahoot. And then we keep going with the back end. We're done with our front end soon. Okay, so for the back end, as I said, today we have to make our app communicate or talk to ChatGPT servers. So we need to have a deeper understanding into the ChatGPT technology. And I'm curious if you guys know which company made ChatGPT. Is it Google or Apple, Microsoft, or OpenAI? We're talking about Microsoft. Yesterday, there was a global accident. Some security software saga from Microsoft. Okay, great. So it seems most of you knows that OpenAI is the company that invented ChatGPT. Very good. Congratulations, Ankit. Now you are the first, number one. Now, next. So what kind of technology is ChatGPT? Well, we use this Kahoot platform very, very often in my classes. And, we ask this kind of like brain teaser questions. So what kind of technology is ChatGPT? Please keep your answer short, concise. I'm sure most of you will answer AI, but what particular type of AI is ChatGPT? Okay, so now Kahoot apparently is using AI to generate the word cloud for us based on the answers from all our participants. So as I expected, most of you answered AI, artificial intelligence. Yes, indeed, ChatGPT is kind of an AI or artificial intelligence. But my question is, what kind of AI? And there are very nice answers. Chatbots is an application of ChatGPT. Word-based AI, yes. Many of the applications are word-based. And yeah, of course, ChatGPT uses large language model. Very good. And ChatGPT can answer questions. If you build a chatbot application with ChatGPT, yes. Conversational AI, yeah, very good. Thank you. So the correct answer, well, we know ChatGPT is artificial intelligence, but it's a very, very specific kind of AI, right? It's called generative AI. So this is the answer I'm looking for. Thank you. All right. Moving on. Yeah, so ChatGPT is a kind of generative AI. And someone mentioned just now, it's a area studied in natural language processing, and it's a subfield of computer science. And we can build many kinds of applications based on ChatGPT, right? So you guys know we can build chatbot. We can build like a personal assistant, or like image generator. ChatGPT can help us generate images, figures, or design, like layout for houses, architecture design, and so on. So there are a lot of applications for ChatGPT. And of course, there are limitations. I'm not going to talk about it right now. All right, let's move on. So in order for our image generator app to communicate with ChatGPT, we have to use something called Application Programming Interface, or API. So API allows different software to talk to each other. Well, there are kind of API that support the communication between software and hardware as well. But well, my background is more like computer science, so we care more about the kind of API that allows different software to talk to each other. And don't feel scared by the name API. I'm pretty sure most of you already have used it. For example, if you use some web application, and normally you have to sign in, right? You have to create your account, and oftentimes the web service will allow you to sign in with a third-party account, such as Instagram or Facebook or Google. And if you choose to sign in using a third-party account, Then the app will talk to the API of that third-party software in order to retrieve your account information. For example, in this case, if I choose to log in using my Facebook account, then this web app will try to talk to Facebook API in order to get my account information so that I can log in. So API is a technology very, very common and widely used nowadays, even if you don't really know it. And our app needs to talk to ChatGPT through the OpenAI API. And now I'm going to explain how the OpenAI API works. So there are two steps. Well, these are invisible. You don't see it as an user, but there are a lot of communications going on in the back end. So firstly, your app or the app we're building today need to obtain something called API key from the authorization server of OpenAI. And I'm going to show you how to get the API key later. And second, after your app obtain the API key, then the next step is to make a request. Ask ChatGPT for some help using the API key. So there are two steps. Pay close attention to this figure because I will have a quiz for you guys next. So in the API workflow, I've just shown you, what does a client or an application obtain from the authorization server? Is it an API key or image or number or private data of the client? Remember the two steps? First, you need to obtain something from the authorization server, and then you can make a request together with that thing. Imagine if you want to enter a house to fetch something, you have to use something to enter the house first, right? So what does a client or app obtain from the authorization server of OpenAI? Very good. I'm very glad to know that most of you are paying close attention. Yes, so in the API workflow, the first step is for the client application to obtain an API key from the authorization server. Very good. Now, this figure here shows you the ChatGPT API workflow. So basically, we can build the back end of our app by implementing these 4 steps. So the first step is to obtain an API key, right? The first step showing in the previous figure. And then once you have the API key, then you can prepare your request. And in order to prepare your request, you need to prepare something called request header. And there are certain information we need to include in this request header. And I'm going to walk you through the details later. And once you have the request header ready, then the next step is to actually make a request, which we call make API post to the OpenAI server. And after that, you need to wait, or your application need to wait until ChatGPT server generate a response to you and return you a response. And we need to, process this response. Well, there are a lot of new concepts here today, but don't worry if you find it hard to unpack all the new concepts. It's okay, just follow me. And I'm going to show you how to do this in App Inventor. So first step, obtaining the API key, right? And how to do that. So we need to visit the website of OpenAI. And let's open the browser. If you don't, if you don't know what is the website of OpenAI, just ask Dr. Google. And then we need the API login. Okay, choose API. Now go here, you can see the menu bar on the left side, right? Choose API keys. Right here, this is where we create new API keys. Here, you create it. And as you can see here, I already have several, actually a lot of API keys I created for my various different applications. Now I'm going to show you how to create a new one. It's very simple. Just hit the create new secret key here, and you can name it. So let's say today is 2024, July 20. Just name it like this. And then create secret key. There you go. This is the key I've just created. And now I need to make a copy. Make sure you make a copy and paste it somewhere because there's no way for you to see it again once you hit the done button here. So you need to make sure you copy this key and paste it somewhere. Let's see, we can maybe paste it on the notepad. Okay, now we have a copy of our keys. Now I'm going to go back to App Inventor to build the back end. As I said, we're going to do a lot of back and forth today, switching between different web apps. Okay, so we are in the workspace for building our back end. First, we need to prepare the API key, right? So let's try to initialize a global variable and call it API key. Okay, and now we need to copy the key. Let's get this string block and copy the key here. All right, now we have our API key ready. And once we have the API key, then the next step is to prepare the request header. Yeah, prepare the request header. And you might ask, how do I know what kind of information I need to include in the request header? Well, as a developer, we make references to the documentation of the software or service provider very, very often. So in order to figure out what information is needed in our request header, we have to visit the ChatGPT API reference. That is where you find all the required information. This is like grammar rules. Okay, people think programming is difficult and they were like, there's no way for them to learn. But actually, just imagine it as learning a language. There are grammar rules and syntax rules, and we don't make the rules. The companies, OpenAI, made these rules. So we just need to follow it. And you can always visit the ChatGPT API reference to figure out the rules you need to follow. Okay, so for preparing the request header, we need to provide information for something called content type. You can see here, right, highlighted in this box. The first information we need to provide is content type, and we need to specify it as application/JSON. And then another information we need to provide is for authorization. And for this one, we need to make sure that our value is bearer space and then our API key. Okay, so now I'm going to implement this in App Inventor. And all this need to happen when user click the button, right? So we need a button click handler here. Okay, now we have a click handler for the button. So when user clicks the button, then something going to happen. So the app needs to make a request. Request headers. Yes, set request headers. So I need to prepare a request header. And then in the request header, we need to have two important information, right? First is content type, and the other is authorization. So for this, we need to organize the information using something called a dictionary. Let's get make a dictionary. As I said, today there are a lot of new concepts for you guys, but don't worry. You don't have to, digest everything. Just follow the flow and enjoy my cooking show. Okay, dictionary, and there should be 2 pair of information. So for the first pair, we have to have something called content type. You just need to create a string and make sure it looks exactly like this as required by the OpenAI API reference. And then for the second one is authorization. I have to apologize that I'm not able to answer questions now because that will interrupt our flow and cause delay. I will answer all your questions after I finish the tutorial. And then we need to specify the value for each key. So for the first one, it has to be application/JSON. As I said, these are the grammar rules we have to follow. So it's not rocket science. You don't have to invent anything. And for the second value, it has to be there, and then the API key. So for the API key, we can get the value of this global variable. There we go. We have all the information needed for the request header. Let's take a closer look, make sure we have everything here. We have content type, right, and authorization. Yeah, everything looks correct. Content type and authorization, very good. And then after we prepare the request header, we should actually make request. In order to do so, we need to go back to the web component and then choose post text. And now, of course, we need to specify the address of the ChatGPT service provider. So we need to set the URL. To the address. Probably this api.openai.com, version 1, images and generations. Okay. As I said, these are like grammar rules or syntax rules we just need to follow. And for posting the request, again, we need to make a dictionary. Let's move on to the next step. Yeah, we built this. And then after that, post API request, right? Again, we need to include some information in the API request. And where to get that information? We need to visit the ChatGPT API reference again. And as you can see here, in order to create an image, you need to include all this content in your request when you post a request. So apparently we have 3 parameters here. First is the prompt. So the prompt is the description of the image that the user want the app to want ChatGPT to generate for him or her. And then you have another parameter called n. This is the number of image. And then you have size. Size is the size of the image. And then you might ask me, how do you know what these parameters are? Well, if you look to the right side, you can see all this detailed information or explanation for each of the parameters. And so I'm saying, like, as developers, we need to frequently check their references. So N is the number of images and size is the size of the generated images. Now let's go back to App Inventor to implement this. And we're using a dictionary to organize all this information, but we need 3 pairs now, right? And this block only has 2 pairs. So how to add another pair? You just need to click this mutator and add another pair. There you go. Now we have 3 pairs. So first we need to prepare something called prompt. Yes. And then the second thing is N, right? The number of images. And then the third parameter is size, the size of the image you want ChatGPT to generate for you. So for prompt, apparently this should be something that user input in the text box. So we need to grab that from the text box. If you hover, click on the text box, there is a block called get. Get the text here. The text of the text box. And then for the N, you can set it to, if you only need 1 image, you set it to 1. If you want 2 images, you set it to 2. But I'm very gentle today. I only want 1 image. We can try to change it and see what happens later. And then for the size of the image, usually we set it to 512 to 512. You set it to 1024, but then you probably need to wait longer in order to receive the response from ChatGPT server. Okay, and now we pretty much have everything ready. But in order to improve user experience, I'm going to set the screen title. Screen title. Oh, there we go. Set screen title. Okay, I'm going to set it to waiting for response, so the user knows now the app is waiting for response from the ChatGPT server. Okay. Pretty nice. Very sleek. Now let's go back to the workflow. All right, we've completed the third step, right? Post API request. Now we have more things to do. We have this already. Now, process response. So the application make a request, post a request to ChatGPT server, and then your application needs to wait for a ChatGPT server to generate a response. And you might ask, how does the response look like? It doesn't look like an image. It's, a lot of text looking like this. So if we try to print out the response from ChatGPT, it's something looking like this. It's not beautiful. It's not an image. It's just a bunch of text. And in the text, if you look closer, you notice there are several things, right? Created, and then a number, and then data. Well, this kind of format is called JSON format. It's a very, very widely used way to organize information nowadays. And among all this data we have here, the created refers to the timestamp. The timestamp that the ChatGPT server generated this response. And this number is the Unix timestamp. Well, if you're curious, you can, ask Dr. Google for more information about it. And then below the created timestamp, you have the actual data. And the data, if you look closer, you can see a URL, right? And then a web address. So this is the address where ChatGPT stores the image. you asked for. And this is the information that we actually needed. So we don't care about the created timestamp. The only thing we care about is this URL. So, but right now the URL is nested within this big chunk of information, right? So we need to peel, what we call parse, unpack this information to get the URL of the image. And it's a kind of complicated process, and unfortunately, we don't have time to go through all the steps, but you can imagine the process as peeling an onion. So there are many layers wrapping around the URL that you actually need. So you need to peel the onion layer by layer until you actually obtain the URL. Okay, now let's try to implement the process of peeling the onion. Okay, we need one big block here. Again, go back to web component. So we need a block called when this web component got text. So this is what the app will do after it receives the response from ChatGPT server. Okay, so what exactly the app needs to do? First, set the screen title, because now we already got a response, right? So we don't need to show waiting for response. Response. Now we can show response received. Okay, and after that, we need to peel the onion and then show the image. So we need to set the image, picture to something. Yeah, set the image to something. We don't need that. And now the process for peeling the onion. So first, we need to convert the JSON format to something called list. And then we need to peel the list by taking out certain element from the list. And unfortunately, we don't have all the time to go through the technical details, but I'm just going to show you how to combine the blocks. We need several select item from list blocks. And we need different kinds of element from each list. Second one. Then the first one. Well, if you want to know exactly what these blocks mean or what they're doing, then you need to apply KUAS engineering department to take my class to learn all the details. Okay, and then we need a dictionary block. Get value for key. Dictionary, yes. And the dictionary is called web. There you go. We need this one. JSON. Yes, indeed, it looks very, very similar to Scratch. The only difference, I guess, is that now we're dealing with all the communications. So it's slightly more complicated because you need to understand how different software talk to each other. So now we get the value for key. It's called data, right? Remember just now we saw here the URL is actually included in corresponding to the key value data. That's why we need to set the key value to data here. And then for the JSON text is actually the response we got. Get response content. Yes. There you go. We have everything Ready. So this blocks implements the process of peeling the onion to get the particular information we need, which is the URL of the image, and then show the image on the image component on the UI. Okay, we have our back end ready. And I'm going to test it. So, if you use App Inventor, there are different ways to test your app. You build your app in the web app, right? And there are different ways to test it. If you go to Connect, you can see there are 3 ways. You can either use something called AI Companion app, or you can use Emulator, or you can actually connect to your real phone using USB and test the app on a real smartphone. And I personally prefer USB because some of the features are not available on Emulator or AI Companion, so it's always safer to test your app on a real device, especially if you're dealing with sensors, all these communications. So now, I hope you guys can see this. This is my phone, and you can see, okay, let me switch back to the front end. This is how our app looks like on the virtual device, right? And this, looking to the camera, this is how it looks like on my real device, on a real smartphone. And now I'm going to make a prompt. I want ChatGPT to generate something, let's say cute panda. Well, panda is my favorite. So you type the prompt, cute panda, and then hit draw for me. It's not. Okay, there's an error connecting the device. I'm just gonna reset connection. Reconnect. So sometimes the device disconnects and you just need to reset the connection. And sometimes it's not responding, so I'm just going to cancel it and make sure that, okay, this is fine. And then reset, not reset. When you test the software, anything can go wrong. So don't feel frustrated. Let's try it again. And of course, if it's the first time we build a software, and it's inevitable that sometimes you get errors, right? And we just need to debug and see what's the problem. Anyway, I'm going to try again. Cute panda. Okay, there's an error, so something's wrong. Then I suppose I will need to double check the code, make sure everything's all right. Well, this is actually pretty different from Android Studio. They're similar in the sense that they are all IDE, right? Integrated development environment, but they're actually very different. Sometimes, if your code is not organized in the right order, you might get error. So sometimes you just reshuffle certain code and then there you go, problem solved. And sometimes you have additional space. I don't think you can ask ChatGPT to help you debug this visual programming code right now. If it's textual programming like Python code, maybe ChatGPT can help you. And sometimes, sometimes the problem is not the code. Sometimes it could be the problem with the API key. So just let me try another API key and see if it works. And sometimes it could be that my internet connection problem. Well, I just give it another try, and if it doesn't work, I'll just keep going. Sorry. Let's go back to the OpenAI website. Okay, I'm gonna copy the key again. Oh, I didn't hit done. Sorry. Yeah, let's hit done. You see, anything can go wrong. So don't feel frustrated, when you have an error. Have error all the time. Just need to figure out how to address the error. And I'm not gonna try again. Still problem. I suppose, oftentimes it's the API keys problem. It's either you don't have credit. So I'm going to just delete it, revoke, and then create a new one. Fast. Paste. Yes, indeed. I think OpenAI changed their policy very, very often. So right now they are very mean. Like they have made their policies more strict. Like you need to have your credit card information. You need to have enough credit, and you cannot make too many requests at the same time. Okay, let me try again. That. Indeed, especially when you are doing a tutorial and it doesn't work. I hope it works now. Oh, oops, error again. Reset again. We're gonna try an error. It's just a very, very essential part of software development. Anyway, even if it doesn't work today, you guys understand the workflow, right? You still learn something useful. And I'm pretty sure if you give me enough time, I will eventually debug this. Or sometimes it could be the Wi-Fi of the university. They have all this security, firewall, that kind of thing. And then that causes problem too. No error, and make a different prompt. Maybe dog.
Professor, do you want to take time to resolve this?
Is it okay if I finish the Kahoot first and then I'll
Yes,
try
yes.
to figure out? Yes, okay. All right. Anyway, so what I want to emphasize is don't worry or don't feel frustrated when you have like an error in your app. It happens all the time and we just need to be patient. But right now I'm going to finish my slides first and then I'll check in detail what was the problem. And it could be the API. I have a hunch it's the API. Okay, so I have some quizzes for you guys. Let's come back to the Kahoot quiz. And I guarantee you I will debug the app later. What other apps do you guys want to make using OpenAI API? So today we try to make the image generator, right? And right now we are having some problems, some issues, and I need to debug it. But other than the image generator, what other AI apps you guys are interested in making, or you think it's possible to make using the OpenAI API? Voice generator, yeah, that sounds great. Talking about voice generator, actually one of my doctoral students, she's a psychologist and she's interested in studying the emotional effect of voice. And she tried to ask ChatGPT to generate robotic voice for her. That's pretty interesting. Oh, so many different ideas. You want to make games. Oh, maybe you want ChatGPT to help you create games? Interesting. Yeah, convert image to text. Oh, this is awesome idea. So you give ChatGPT an image and ask ChatGPT to generate a story for you. Very good. ChatGPT, chatbot. Oh, actually, I hope I have time to demonstrate chatbot, and I hope it works today. I do have a chatbot app, also made in App Inventor. Oh, for solving mathematics. Oh, you're lazy. You want to outsource your homework to ChatGPT, but I think that will work. Quick response app, yeah, kind of like a chatbot. Homework solver. Oh, I think actually students are doing it nowadays. They are trying to ask ChatGPT to help them solve their homework. Oh, PowerPoint maker. This might be challenging, but I think that's doable. Homework assistant. It seems you guys are really worried about homework. Math solver. Okay. Calculator, yes. To-do list. Oh, this is good. So you can ask ChatGPT to help you manage your schedules, to-do tasks. Coding. Oh, yes. I think it's actually very common nowadays. People ask ChatGPT to help them code, especially the Python language. And I think sometimes ChatGPT give you very, very nice help, actually, but not always. Okay, not always. You need to be very critical. And converting YouTube to MP3, develop video games. Oh, that's complicated, actually. But I think it's possible to ask ChatGPT generate like the narrations and the image, the graphics, characters of video games. But in terms of designing a like very, very enjoyable, entertaining video game, you still need, professional game developers. Essay. Oh yeah, ChatGPT is very good at writing essays or learning languages. Yes. Yeah, indeed, very basic games. Weather app. In terms of weather app, I think you actually don't need ChatGPT, right? It's just some factual information. I think the only thing you need is the API of some weather forecast website. Note taking, yeah. AI video 10 minutes, oh, pretty long. Yeah, I think nowadays they can. Animations, yeah. Instagram, oh, that's interesting. I think, do they have it now already? You integrate like a ChatGPT module in the Instagram that can help you generate fake pictures, like you were in Japan or you were in Kyoto, you were visiting Qualls. Okay, very good, very good. Thank you very much for all your input. Yeah, WhatsApp has, and they customize their commercial advertisement for each user. Okay, thank you very much for your input, and apologize that the app didn't work just now. I would take a look at it later, but here's a quick wrap up of what we learned today. So first, we used a visual programming environment called App Inventor, which is similar to Scratch, but it's actually, allows you to do more things. And then we quickly walk through the OpenAI API workflow. Don't worry if you cannot unpack all the details because it's quite advanced content, even for university students. And then we also briefly touched the JSON parsing, right? It's like peeling the onion. It's a complicated, like tedious process. And you can do this JSON parsing actually not only in App Inventor, but also using other programming languages like JavaScript or Python. And you have libraries for that. And of course, today is all about Android app development. We made the front end, the back end. That's it. But before we finish this session, I'd like to get your opinion on which topic is your favorite today. You can choose more than one. And I'll see if my chatbot app works. Okay, interesting. So more than half of the participants were interested in OpenAI and App Inventor. Good, thank you very much for your feedback. Let's see who got first place today. Congratulations, 1, 2, 3. Congratulations, okay, number 2. And our number 1 is Ankit. Congratulations to the 3 of you. Good job. Thank you very much for your input. Okay, so I'm sorry that the image generator didn't work, probably due to API issues. Probably they OpenAI changed their policy again or something. Anyway, in fact, I also developed a chatbot app, and I'd like to show you guys the chatbot. So the chatbot answers your question, right? Let's take a look here. This is the chatbot. Again, if you look at the UI, it's extremely simple, just a few components. And then the back end of the chatbot is using a library or an extension. So the back end looks different. Just now, for the image generator, we actually built everything, the 4 steps, remember? You have to prepare the API key and you have to prepare the request header, right? And actually you need to post the request and then parse the JSON data. So we implemented all the steps on our own from scratch. But for this app, the chatbot right now, we're using the extension. So it's way easier. You don't see all these dictionaries blocks anymore, right? Because the extension, the chatbot extension, implement everything for us. So we just need to call this block and then just show it. And that's all. So compare with the app just now, this is even simpler. And it's working. So if you look into your camera, this is the chatbot app. Right, we have a very simple UI. And then the AI said, hello. And then I said, how are you? And the AI gave me an answer. Very interesting. So AI is very eager to take my questions. And if I answer, I have no question. I have no question and send. Okay, so ChatGPT is very happy I have no question right now, but it's ready to answer my question in the future. Okay, this is a chatbot app. Also using OpenAI API, but we're using an extension now, so we didn't need to build everything from scratch. So the back end looks very, very simple. It's not that complicated, right? everybody can build ChatGPT apps. Yeah, I think so. I think it probably depends on what kind of version the user is using. Okay, so I guess we still have a few minutes, and I'm eager to take your questions if you have. Or if you don't have questions, then I will debug my image generator app. Oh, yes, of course you can.
Hey, hello.
Hello, we can hear you.
Yeah, so basically, I had the doubt that like some time back, I asked you up that if we go to ChatGPT and give the same prompt, that it can sort out the bugs or so or not. So main problem is like currently I'm doing VS Code for C programming. So in that code, when I get stuck, like the same words keep on repeating, I ask the ChatGPT to answer it and it debugs the question. But in this case, if I get stuck like in the API code or somewhat, so it can solve it out or not?
In this case,
Yeah.
I haven't tried it, but I suppose ChatGPT cannot solve the problem here because we're doing a visual programming, right? You're actually having the blocks instead of like text. So I would imagine this
yeah,
is more
that's
complicated.
like in case like the coding part, the where we did it, right? The when you join the blogs and the APK, yes. If I take the screenshot and then upload to ChatGPT, then look out for the problem in this. So like, is it possible or not?
I have no idea because I've never tried. You want to try it now?
Yes, I do.
Okay, we can take a look.
Okay.
So taking a screenshot. I don't know. I have a hunch
Because
it's not gonna work.
ChatGPT is currently providing like 4.0 version for free, for trial. So it allows us to upload images.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure if ChatGPT is familiar with App Inventor.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure for C or Python, this kind of textual programming, ChatGPT is more competent because they have a lot of training data, right? But for App Inventor, I don't know really. But we can try. So if you're curious, I don't know if you have credit for 4.0. Okay, so now I'm on ChatGPT. And as you suggested, we can take a screenshot.
Yeah. Actually, here's a pin button, message ChatGPT. Along with that, we have to click on that and upload the screenshot from our computer. Maybe it works out because it did with me.
Okay, so what prompt do you want me to input now?
Well, actually, there was a bug, right, in this code. Yeah, so can you please debug it for me, writing the app inventor's name
In the App Inventor.
in MIT app? Because right now
there
I'm
is-
not really sure what the prompt should be for this, but
There are
probably
errors in
right.
this.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're testing ChatGPT's competency.
Yeah.
Debugging App Inventor. In this App Inventor code, right? Can you please debug for me? Let's see if it works. I'm very curious.
See, and even if you tell it, probably like elaborate it for me, tell it step by step, I think it will do it too. Like I think so.
No, I think no, it's not addressing the problem. There's no clear answer.
Probably it requires more knowledge.
No, I don't think ChatGPT is well trained. for App
Right.
Inventor. My hunch is the problem with API, but I don't know exactly
So,
what the problem is.
okay, so even if like the way we respond to it, if we are making our own chat box and we are responding to it, telling it the things, will it store the data? And if somebody else asks the same thing and reply the same way, will it, feed the data or not?
Sorry, can you repeat your question again?
Like if I told it that 2 plus 2 is 4, and if somebody
Mm.
asks like what is 2 plus 2, will it tell that it is 4, or it will say like I don't know, like say something else?
In that case, because you are training ChatGPT, right? So you are teaching ChatGPT new knowledge, and I think it will acquire that knowledge. So next time when people ask similar or exact the same question,
Okay.
ChatGPT will answer it.
That's great. Thank you.
So every time when we use ChatGPT, we're actually training it too. So we're doing a favor for OpenAI. Yeah, normally when you have this kind of error, like not found, this means the ChatGPT server is not returning any response. And oftentimes that's a problem of the API. Probably I ran out of credit or something.
Okay.
Well, anyway, thank you very much for a suggestion. And now we know ChatGPT is not competent for App Inventor
Thank you.
debugging. Thank you very much. Okay, I'll
There's
just
some
try another
questions,
key.
Professor. There's some questions. So, Swastik, you can unmute yourself and ask a question.
Ma'am, actually, I don't have any questions right now. I joined the meeting in the middle of the time, so I'm just learning.
Sure, Swastik. So you will be receiving a recording. We will be also posting it on our YouTube channel. So you can access it, learn it. If at any point of time you have any queries, you can let us know.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah. Any other questions regarding the workshop from Professor Liang? You can raise your hand or unmute yourself and ask. Okay, there is a query. Is there a source where we can learn more about this app inventor, Professor?
Yes, if you go to the App Inventor website, App Inventor, and there are a lot of resources out there. Yes, so here they have documentation and the details explaining the web app and the components and troubleshooting and so on. And you know what? App Inventor is open source. So you can actually find it source code. I don't know where it is, but I'll start for Google. App Inventor source code repository. There we go. So App Inventor is open source. That means you can have access to the very, very fundamental layer of this web app. And can you guess what language? Which language is App Inventor written in? Any idea? Which programming language did they use to make App Inventor web app? Not Python. Oh, Java. Let's take a look here. There. Can you see my screen on the right side? Now I'm in the App Inventor repository. So this is source code. If you are familiar with Java, yeah, I think right now it's only Java. Then you can actually clone this repository and modify it. So if you say like, I don't like how the App Inventor website looks like, I don't like the green bars here, I want to make it blue, then you can modify the corresponding source code, recompile, and you have your own App Inventor web service. Actually, I've found some third-party services built on top of App Inventor. They just clone the source code of App Inventor. And you can see here, so this web application was written in Java and even Swift, because it also works for iOS and JavaScript. So it's mostly Java. And you can check all the files by yourself. Yeah, so if you just want to use this app inventor, then you can visit this website to get all the details. And if you want to further develop app inventor, then you can clone their repository and go through the code by yourself, try to understand the architecture of the system and modify certain part.
Professor, there is one question from Shlok. What are the different ways we can make a link app, AI link app?
What does the AI link app mean? What kind of link?
Shlok, do you want to ask the question yourself? You can unmute.
So I was asking that how can we, there are many ways for creating it. So what are some of the ways where we can make a application where it's linked with AI? So it's we made it right now. So type of that.
Sorry, can you repeat? You are making a link app.
No, I'm just asking what are the different ways? This is one way that we did an API. What are the different ways like this?
Oh, you did API? I suppose maybe the difference is the different kinds of API, right? I'm not sure exactly what is the different software components you are using in your app. But I mean, the fundamental mechanism of API is the same, but in terms of how they service the specific software service, structure their resources, it could be different. So that part is customized by the companies. And I'm pretty sure you can find their documentation.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor. There is one more query from Aditya. He is currently building a website. Is it possible for him to integrate this inventor to his website?
I don't think you can integrate directly this visual programming part in your website. If you want to integrate it in your website, you will have to have access to the source code of the app you build in App Inventor, and that is not possible.
There is a query from Aditya. Aditya, you can unmute yourself. You can ask your query.
So, am I audible?
Yes.
So, like, how can we like create an artificial intelligence app like without using any reference from OpenAI or anything, like just on our own?
If you want to make your own AI, you have to, well, first you need to understand AI is a very general concept. And ChatGPT is just built on top of a large language model. It's part of text mining or natural language processing, right? It's their strength about language. But there are a lot of AI applications that are not about language. Like in our case, we're building like AI applications for disease detection or disease prediction. In those cases, we don't need language. We don't use ChatGPT. What we need is a lot of training data collected from patients by ourselves. So certainly, I mean, there are many cases where we don't use ChatGPT to make AI applications. It depends on the context or the purpose of your AI application. And how to do that? If you want to build an AI application without using OpenAI, you need to collect data on your own, or if you're lucky, there are open source data on GitHub. We can find a lot of open data sets. Using those data sets, then you can train and test your own AI models. And you can do that in many languages. And nowadays, for data science, we mostly use Python, and there are a lot of libraries you can use. So we call it pipeline. The AI training pipeline is very mature already.
Okay, but like, suppose like I am creating an AI application on my own. So, like, which language should I normally use? Like Python because of the libraries. But then, if I wish to like not use Python but some other language, so what would be the second favorable language?
As I said, so data science applications is heavily dependent on your context, on the purpose. So for example, if you're building a web application, I would imagine Python would be the go-for language, because using Python, you can build a web app, right? And then using Python, you can also train your AI model. So it's easy to integrate your AI model to the web app if you use Python. Whereas if you get by just some mathematical prediction, you don't care about showing the outcome to users, whatever. In other words, if you don't need a web app or whatever app with a user interface, then you can even use another language called R. So R is a language that statisticians use, and we can use R to build AI model too, if our purpose is just for prediction. So it's up to your objective and the context of your application.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. Any more questions? We have a couple of minutes.
I have a doubt.
Yes.
Yes, go ahead.
We were talking about making a chatbot, AI chatbot. If we talk about ChatGPT, it has a huge amount of database. It stores, like, it is updated to January 2022 right now. So it recollects the data every time, like such huge database. But when we are making our own chat box, how are we gonna think about those database and all things? Because right here we are like being aware that we have to create this and that, use that code. But what about the database part?
Are you asking that the database part for building your own chatbot?
Yeah, if we are asking the chatbot a question, just like ChatGPT stores a lot of database, what about the database that our chatbot stores? Like that's what I'm talking about.
You were talking about building your chatbot without using the ChatGPT databases, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in that case, you need to have your own databases. I mean, it's very simple nowadays. The data for any data science application, data is the soul. You have to have a lot of data. If you don't have a lot of data, then you either use existing services or collecting your own data.
Okay, like we are learning how to make the chatbot, but we have no idea what about the database part. Without that, we can even not keep that chatbot working.
Yes, yeah, database part is the most important. It's the soul of of any data science application or AI application. And if you don't have the data part, then you have to start collecting data.
Yeah, I mean, firstly we need to complete that part and then get to it.
Exactly. And actually, I think ChatGPT database could be biased. They say that they collected a lot of training data from certain region, like South Africa. So you can see that reflected in the syntax, the patterns of the text it generates for you. And also, like right now, ChatGPT is like it doesn't have domain knowledge, right? You cannot build a kind of like a AI doctor using ChatGPT. Is not possible because ChatGPT doesn't have that part of knowledge base. So still there are a lot of constraints about ChatGPT. But one thing for sure is if we're thinking about building any AI application, we must have high quality training data.
That's right.
And actually, if we go deeper, if we take one step further, think about how humans learn. We don't really need many training data. Think about babies. Babies just see a few dogs, and then the next time when the baby see dog, the baby can recognize it's a dog. But that would never happen to AI, right? For AI, if we want to teach AI to recognize a dog, we have to use a lot of images of different kinds of dogs to train an AI. That's very, very different from how we human learn. So right now, the way we build AI models is very, very different from how human brain learns. And that means maybe the way we build AI model is not the best way. So, you know,
Right.
so how to create new method for building AI models that don't require a lot of data. That's the research, you know, right now the research, big research question.
Thank you, Professor, for all the answers. We have a couple of more queries, but we don't have a lot of time. Um, Bari, you have raised your hand. If it's a short query, we will take just this will be the last question. Yes, Bari.
Oh, thank you very much, everyone. I saw many interesting questions in the chat.
Do you
We
want
we don't have time to go through every single question, but I saw a very interesting question like which programming language is going to revolutionize in the future? There is no perfect language, and I think there's a good answer. It's actually depend on the project. It's true, and if you're talking about making Android app, I actually recommend Kotlin. Because now you can, you know, traditionally we have to make the front end using XML and then back end in Java, right? So you have to use two languages. But right now, we just need one Kotlin for both back end and front end. So it feels like breeze. And there's something called Jetpack Compose library. It's very powerful. You can use Jetpack Compose to make your UI. Very, very beautiful UI. And for data science, like if you're thinking about like prediction, that sort of classification, then Python and R are very good. And if you're thinking about building games, then I would say C#, right? Unity, right? So it really depends on what kind of project you're working on. There's no perfect programming language.
Ma'am, as you told us, we have to learn our machine by reinforcement learning. Then do we have any open AI based system that which can store our reinforcement learning data, and we can utilize the data in our chat system?
Are you talking about the data set?
Yeah, ma'am. Like for
Okay.
Automated reply for agriculture system, medical system, then we should have a kind of reinforcement learning. We can train our machine, and that data will be stored as an open based system which we can utilize openly.
I'm not sure about agriculture, but in the medical field, because you know in my lab we are doing a lot of projects about medical field, and yes, we do have large open data sets, and using those data sets you can train your own AI models. But the problem now is, you know, different data sets are different. They are not compatible with each other. That's the biggest problem. So it's like one research group collect a data set using a set of sensors, right? And then another group using a different set of sensors, even if they are measuring the same thing, but because they use different sensors, and then you cannot merge the two data sets. You know, that's the biggest problem now, the compatibility of different data sets. It's you know, everybody knows we need to collect a lot of data, but now when you actually start looking for data set, you realize everybody's doing it in a different way. And that's really annoying because, as I said, it makes it impossible to merge the data set. So still, we only have several like middle scale data sets, but there's no really like big data set. And another challenge for preparing data sets is you need the ground truth, right? You need annotations, and that's another challenge. You need manpower, basically.